So I grew up here in Thunder Bay. My family had a beautiful faith, and we went to church every Sunday. We read the Bible, I enjoyed Sunday school, and we prayed together almost every night. And I had this beautiful childlike faith. I loved that I pictured God as this old man in the clouds with a long beard who just loved all of his children. And I was so grateful for this foundation that I had as a child. But as I got older, these beautiful ideas that I had and this background that I had, things started to change. I found it hard to see God in all the struggles that were happening in the world and all the heartache that was happening. And I started to wonder, maybe this wasn't as real as I thought that it was. I started to look at the Bible as maybe something that was a good moral teaching or a lesson to guide people to live a good life. But I wasn't sure if there was very much truth beyond that. So as I continued journeying for a while, and I had my own ideas of what Christianity was all about, I stopped going to church, I stopped praying, and I stopped being active in my faith. And I started to look at things like, you know what, you do you, and I'll do me, and this just isn't for me. To my family's dismay, I'm sure it was really hard for them to see me just pulling back completely from this beautiful faith that I had grown up with. Now, I have to be honest with you, life, it was actually pretty good. I didn't feel I needed God in my life. My friends were great, my family was good, but yeah, things were good. I didn't need God in my life, but thank goodness God got a hold of me and he changed my path. So I went, later in my teenage years, I went on a first date. And on this date, we were walking around Boulevard Lake, and we were talking, and it ended up being this beautiful conversation. And he asked me a question, and he said, "Do you believe in God?" And I was taken aback at first, because that's a pretty intense first date question. But I stopped, and I thought, well, yeah, I believe in God and a higher power. I grew up Catholic, but I don't really practice church. And when I said that to him, he said, "Catholic? You grew up Catholic?" And he started throwing all these different challenges at me and questions at me. And something strange happened in that moment. I began to get really defensive. I don't know why, because I wasn't really going to church, and I wasn't really active in my faith. But deep down, something in me just felt like, I better look into this. So after that conversation, I started a search for the first time in my life. I started wanting to find out the answers to these questions. Is there any evidence to support Christianity? Is there ever any evidence outside of the Bible to prove that Jesus was a real man? And the crazy part was, there was. I was finding incredible evidence about his life, death, and resurrection. I was finding stories of miracles that are happening today in our world that scientists just can't explain. And I started to think, you know what? I think there's a little more to this than I originally thought. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to give this a go. I started going back to church. I began to try praying. I decided to open the Bible and to start reading it to see what it said. And I have to be honest with you, this portion of my journey, it wasn't easy. I would pray and then fall asleep in the middle of my prayers. And I would read the Bible, but I just found it hard to understand what it was saying. And even though I knew there was something to it, my heart just wasn't in it. My brain was saying there's some evidence here, but when my heart wasn't convicted, it was a challenge. So I continued on with this blind faith for quite a while. And I had an opportunity to go on a retreat. And during this retreat, we were able to pull back and just spend some time with God and just talk to God one-on-one. And it was the most beautiful setting. It was over Lake Superior. The sleeping giant was in the background. And I just closed my eyes to pray. And I said, God, just take over my life. And in that moment, God came over me. It was like a flow of love, electricity, and the most incredible feeling. There's no human words to explain what happened in that moment. But I knew more than anything that God was real. And my heart was convicted. And I knew this was the most important message that you could share with this world. And I knew for the rest of my life, I would spend all of my time focused on sharing his love with other people. This changed everything. When I opened my eyes after this encounter with the living God, the world physically looked different to me. My friends noticed a difference. My family noticed a difference. My priorities changed. And as I would open the Bible, it became alive. The words that before seemed hard to understand and dry, all of a sudden were speaking to me in real ways and really impacting my life. My prayer life became alive as well, and it was the most incredible thing. Now, before I thought God was real, and there was evidence for this. But God gave me an incredible new life through this encounter. He showed me that, similar to this Easter weekend with his resurrection, I was alive before, but now I have a new life. He has risen me from the dead. God, I'm just so grateful for this life-changing moment. Now, this just began the journey for me. Since that first God encounter, I have seen God working and alive in this world more than ever. When I see struggles and things that are happening, before I would have thought, oh, I don't think God's here. But instead now, I'm able to clearly see him working through these struggles. I'm able to see God doing miracles in our world today here in Thunder Bay. And it's no longer this blind faith. I have to be honest with you, the struggles still come. But there's a difference in how you handle them. I have a joy and a peace knowing that God is so much bigger than any of these giants that I face. In our world today, especially with the things that are going around and all of the uncertainty, when I start to get overwhelmed by the outside world, all I have to do is stop and think back to that one God encounter where everything changed, where he changed my life. And I just know that everything is going to be okay. Now, I don't know where you are on your faith journey. Maybe this is all new to you, and you're not sure about the whole concept of Christianity. But one of my favorite quotes is from C.S. Lewis, and it says, "Christianity, if false, is of no importance. If true, it is of infinite importance. The only thing it cannot be is moderately important." So I challenge you during this new season to find out the truth, to start that search. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, was actually stepping aside from my own thoughts and looking for evidence for if this is true or false. Now, maybe some of you are at the stage where it's still that head knowledge. You think there's some evidence, but your heart's not convicted. And if that's where you are, I challenge you to just stop, to take some time in silence and just pray to God and say, God, just take over my life. And the beauty is he's a gentleman. He's never going to force himself onto you. And if you knock on that door, it's a promise. It will be opened. So I challenge you to do that. Now, maybe you've been on this faith journey for quite a while, and you know how beautiful God is and how he's been working in your life, and you're seeing just him changing this world. If that's where you are, my challenge for you is to share it. The world now, more than ever, needs to hear his message and to know that he is alive and well. So go out and tell people about your story. Tell people about how you've encountered God in your life. For so much of my life, up until very recent months, much of my family and friends didn't know how God has just transformed me. They didn't know the intimate details of my story. And now the world needs to hear this. So go tell your friend. Go make a phone call. Go share a post on Facebook. Tell people that God is alive and well in this world. Now, I want to be clear about something. This story is not about me, and it's all about him. I'm nothing special. God just showed up in my life and changed everything. And he wants that for you. He wants even greater things for you. So I thank God every day for that first date that he sent me on, which prompted this search. And I also thank him because I ended up marrying the guy. So I'm so grateful how he started this journey for me. And I know he wants the same thing for you. Just as we're celebrating this Easter weekend, God wants to raise us from the dead. He wants to give us new life. And are you willing to say yes?